Good morning, everyone, and I would like to welcome on behalf of the committee the Minister for Canadian Heritage, the Honourable Mélanie Joly, and we will begin proceedings. The Minister is aware that she has 10 minutes to present, and then there will be rounds of questions and answers. And I will indicate when the round comes how long the question and answer session is. Just be reminded that the time contains both question and answer. And so there is no specific time for questions and specific time for answers. If there is a 7-minute round, it means both questions and answers must be filled and fulfilled within the 7 minutes. So thank you very much. And now, Madame Joly, Madame Minister.
Merci, Eddie.
Thank you, Hedy. Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning. Good morning to you all. I'm pleased to be here this morning with you.
I'm very happy to be here with Andrew Francis, and of course with the people from Heritage. So of course Andrew Francis that will assist me in answering any of your questions regarding much more financial and questions, and of course Graham Flack, my deputy minister, who you had the chance, I guess, to meet because of the briefing that was given to the Heritage Committee earlier this week. So, je suis très contente aussi d'avoir l'occasion de vous rencontrer.
Very pleased to meet with you, and for various reasons. Essentially, not only to answer your questions, but to continue the cooperation which began between the committee and our office. I think that the vast majority of you were able to meet with various people from Heritage Canada to have a briefing and to be brought up to date on various issues. And you have been able to read the documents which I have made public. And this means openness and transparency initiatives which are for you very relevant ones and help you to do the work as parliamentarians. I wanted to come back to the issue of the budget, which was tabled March 22nd last, the budget for 2016. It was a historic investment, $1.9 billion in this sector over 5 years in arts and culture and in our cultural infrastructure. It is the most important investment in culture for many years now, and we are one of the countries, probably the only country in the world, to invest so much money in arts and culture. This 1.9 billion, well, how was it shared? 1.26 billion over 5 years in the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, Société du Canada, Telefilm Canada, the National Film Board of Canada, Canadian Council for the Arts. $105.9 million over 5 years in our national museums, and 6.1 million annually on a permanent basis.
Also, in terms of cultural infrastructure, and there's a $156.4 million given to a storage facility that will help the Science Tech Museum, the National Gallery, as well as the Canadian Conservation Institute. You like that, Peter? I'm sorry. I thought that was a good joke. And also there's the National Arts Center, the NAC, is given $114.6 million. And these are just some of the highlights in terms of cultural infrastructure that are given for our national museums, or our, how can I say, national institutes. Also, there's $35 million over a period of 2 years that is given to cultural exports. As you may have seen in the budget, for those who had the chance of reading everything that is pertaining to heritage, we will also launch public consultations in order to develop a strategy for cultural exports, and I'll be able, of course, to answer any of your questions in regards to cultural exports. Maintenant, si on regarde le budget.
If you look at the main budget, main estimates 2016-2017, $1.29 billion is being given over, generally speaking, for our work. $104.6 million for the 150th anniversary of the celebration of Confederation, and it had been previously announced earlier this year that the 4 themes of the 150th anniversary of Confederation are diversity and inclusion, national reconciliation, youth, environment, and national reconciliation with Aboriginal people. I have previously announced signature projects and very interesting projects. And when we talk about signature projects, these are pan-Canadian projects, Dom Sesqui in 150. These are geodesic domes which are going to be providing the latest technology, Canadian technology, with regard to immersive experiences, or establishing partnerships with the Toronto Symphony Orchestra to develop a soundtrack for the 150th anniversary. These are all projects for which I will be able to take questions later on. It's also important, we have an initiative, another initiative for community funds for Canada's 150th. 191 foundations throughout the country will receive an investment of $10 million contribution, $10 million which will be raised by various philanthropists. In fact, Jim Balzilli will be helping create a fund where we will be able to give micro grants focusing on connecting, mobilizing Canadians to the amount of $15,000. So that's the main estimates for the 150th anniversary of Confederation. Now, let me speak a little bit generally about the change we've given to Canadian heritage since we've arrived.
We believe heritage has never been so strategic in a government. Why? Because we were elected as a government on the basis that we ought to generate growth. We had in our economy. And how do we do that? Well, there's different ways. And of course, the budget highlights the different measures in order to grow the economy. But when it comes to grow the economy, of course, we have to invest in innovation. And how do you invest in innovation? Well, you do it different ways, but one of these ways is certainly to make sure to invest in arts and culture. Why? Well, of course, you have to generate innovation. Innovation just doesn't happen like that. You need to have the right ecosystem. And in order for different ideas to emerge and become business ideas or research ideas. And at the fauna and the flora of that innovation ecosystem are the people, all our stakeholders that are in the arts and culture world. And that's why for us it was so strategic to invest $1.9 billion over 5 years. I would also add to that when you look at what's the impact of arts and culture and in general of creative industries, well, they amount up to $47.7 billion of our GDP. That's more than agriculture, forestry, and fisheries altogether. So that's why we really see our role as key to the economy and key to generate innovation and key to generate growth, and ultimately that would better lives of Canadians. The other reason why we also think that heritage has never been so strategic is that also we think that there's an important digital shift happening affecting all the different parts of our portfolio, including media, including entertainment.
1 minute, Minister.
Yes, thank you. Entertainment meaning music, meaning, of course, books, films, etc. And I know you're doing right now as a parliamentary committee an important study on local news. We're very interested in partnering with you to understand what are the issues, also your recommendations. But this is key for us to understand what's happening in the digital shift, and I'll be launching public consultations on this subject. So I'm here with my team to answer all your questions. There's many other things that are relating to much more financial and operational measures. But of course, I can answer all your questions. Et puis, bien entendu, que ce soit en matière de langues officielles.
Questions either about official languages or support to the arts. I'm here to answer your questions, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. 10 minutes. Thank you. So now we begin the first round of questions, and these are 7-minute rounds, and we will begin with Mr. O'Regan for the Liberal Party.
Thank you, Madam Chair. $1.9 million in the budget for arts and culture. $675 million of that for CBC Radio Canada. There are a number of us in the room who understand that broadcasting is in a particularly dynamic environment at the moment. How do you see that as a strategic investment, and how do you place that strategically, that investment in the CBC Radio Canada, both domestically and internationally?
Mm-hmm. Very good question. Thank you. Of course, this is no news for anybody around this table and Canadians because we campaign on this. So, of course, this was just part of our campaign commitments. But more than that, we believe in the role of a public broadcaster. And I would add to that, we believe in it because of its importance in making sure that we have a strong Canadian diversity and that people around the country have access to information that is in relation with their region and also what's happening in the country in general. And we also believe that because of what's happening in the media world right now and the impact of digital on the media and of technological changes, of course, that have an impact on how people consume information, well, we ought to strengthen our public broadcaster and strengthen its role. And so that's why we have expressed important wishes to the CBC, while of course respecting their independence. And in order for that $675 million to be, how can I say, to be supporting 3 important priorities that they've expressed also, which is to support more content and, of course, more people developing content, local content throughout the country. Also to support their digital shift, really helping Radio-Canada CBC developing its digital backbone, maybe jobs understanding algorithms, big data, everything that a media needs to have in order to understand all the different ways people are consuming information in this digital age. And the third thing, of course, I would say en français, c'est la façon, en fait.
The third thing is, in fact, what is fundamental for us is to bring up a new generation so that in 50 years' time we have a strong Radio-Canada CBC and that we be able to have young people, new jobs created in order to ensure that there is the lasting of our CBC.
Radio-Canada that we're supporting, and that's why the investments that were announced in the budget of 2016-2017 are so important because they really support these 3 priorities.
Let me take it to a local level. I'm very proud of the fact that one of the area codes, postal area codes that I represent, has more artists than any other in the country. And one of the big recipients here is the Canada Council for the Arts. Can you talk a little bit, I think, about that particular investment and what sort of impact you see that having, how you plan on delivering that money in an effective way?
We are reinvesting $550 million in the Canada Council over the next 5 years. And it's, for us, the best way to really support and strengthen the support to the arts and artists themselves. What's great about that investment, it also happens concurrently with the great work the Canada Council has been doing over the last years in order to reform all its programs, whereby, of course, you could ask the questions to Simon Brault, who's the president who's in charge of the Canada Council, but there used to be nearly 148 programs at the Canada Council. There's been a lot of restructuring, thinking how to better support artists and different artistic organizations, and now they're down to 6 programs. And by reducing red tape, by facilitating also the organizations to better create rather than just working on understanding what's the different modalities of programs in order to get the funding for the Canada Council. Now it's going to be easier because clearly there's it's going to the 6 programs, and of course our $550 million will give access to better artistic creation, better support to indigenous artists and indigenous art in general, and also to help in terms of exporting, helping all our different artistic organizations access to new markets, and therefore exporting what the best of Canadian culture.
Well, then I'll allow you maybe just to, I guess at this rate, 40 seconds, maybe just to elaborate a little more on, everybody talks about innovation and the role of arts and culture in innovation and how it produces results for the economy.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, Canada is the third most important music producer in the world. Canada is the third most important video games producer in the world. So these are just 2 examples of the fact that we already have a strong ecosystem, but we have also the chance to invest in it in order to produce better results. And clearly, this is the first time in a long time that that's what the government is doing. The reaction is great, but it's not only in terms of that the arts and culture world is reacting well, is that the reaction is based on the fact that we're answering the needs of the organizations and also of the market. Because by doing that, we'll be creating, I think, the jobs of tomorrow. We're really developing the pillars of the future creative economy that has great potential and that Canada really needs to embrace.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Morrigan. And we now move to Mr. Van Loan from the Conservative Party.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Minister, for coming today. I wanted to start first by congratulating and thanking you for using the phrase 150th anniversary of Confederation, and I've noticed you've used that regularly. I think that's important because that is the event that we are observing and commemorating. But one of the things I noticed is that in the 4 main themes, and it's in your notes circulated today, that are going to be featured are diversity and inclusion, national reconciliation with Aboriginal people, youth, and the environment. What seems to me to be missing, notwithstanding that you keep using the phrase 150th anniversary of Confederation, is any notion of history, or particularly the event Confederation. Shouldn't Confederation be one of the themes of the 150th anniversary of Confederation?
When I inherited of this project, there were already projects that were in line with history, commemoration, military important, for example, the Vimy 100th anniversary commemoration, a lot of initiatives in lines of sports and arts and culture, but there were 4 themes that were less supported, which were the ones that I talked about: diversity, inclusion, youth, environment, and national reconciliation with Indigenous people. And that is why we put these teams forward to also attract new projects that would support these themes. So it doesn't mean that projects that don't fall under these 4 themes can't be supported. A lot of them will be supported. And of course, there's going to be emphasis on explaining to Canadians what happened over the last 150 years. And also, having said that, how we can have an optimistic outlook on the future of our country.
I'm looking at the new. I have to respectfully disagree with some of that. You say these themes weren't there before. I'm looking at the news release when the previous government announced it, and under themes and vision, it talks about an open, diverse, and pluralistic society, for example, bringing Canadians together. That sounds like diversity and inclusion to me. So I think you will find that some of those themes were being emphasized. But my concern is that Confederation and history are perhaps, when it comes to things like the microgrants and so on, being missed, and that we aren't really focusing on encouraging communities to focus on that the way you are in your terminology, the 150th anniversary of Confederation. The Dominion Institute and Historica have done some good research over time. In 2007, they told us that only 16% of Canadians could name the 4 provinces of Confederation. Same year, only 46% of young Canadians could name the first Prime Minister, Sir John A. Macdonald. In 2008, when they look at the population as a whole, they do a little better. 61% knew Sir John A. as the first Prime Minister. By 2013, that had gone up to 74%, which was good. The similar improvement happened over knowing that 1867 was the year of Confederation. In 2008, only 61% knew. By 2015, that was up to 72%. I think what that tells us is Canadians do want to know more about their country. They do want to know more about Confederation. Do you agree that we need to focus on getting more of that knowledge of Confederation to the public?
I agree with the fact that we shouldn't play politics with the 150th anniversary.
And if we talk about the history of it, we can. And up there we've got, for example, a portrait which includes the Fathers of Confederation. They're from both political parties. It's a nonpartisan thing. And, for example, I don't know if many Canadians...
Would we allow the Minister to answer your question?
I've only got 7 minutes. I heard her answer. She said she agreed, and it shouldn't be partisan. And
no,
I'm saying...
but I can answer to give you why I agree. So, for example...
Well, if I could, I've only got 7 minutes with the greatest of respect, Madame, and I'd like you've answered the question to my satisfaction, that we should do it and it shouldn't be partisan. We've got a portrait of the Fathers of Confederation here. It is not partisan. They're from both political parties. I'd like each Canadian, for example, to be able to name, say, just 4 of those, the 4 key figures, for example. Could you do that?
Of course I can, but Mr. Van Loan,
well, could you name me 4 Fathers of Confederation?
The idea of the 150th anniversary is not to polarize it and to have it a very, how can I say,
you can name them from both parties.
And therefore, there's going to be the Museum of History, for example, will be presenting its new, sa nouvelle salle de l'histoire du Canada.
This new exhibit on the history of Canada, and in this context, we're going to be able to present the history of the last 150 years of Canada, moments, great moments, some more difficult moments of that history, and I think we are going to need an approach. How shall I express it? We're going to have to make our approach a little more popular one, and I agree with you that the Canadians should be able to know their history more. In fact, this is part of the indicators that we have at Canadian Heritage. In addition, I think that...
Answer more questions, Madam Chair. I'd like an answer to my question. Could you name, could you name, with respect, could you name 4 of them?
With regard to the history of the country, another program that we also have, another initiative that we have launched is, for example, to make sure that we can celebrate the history of our scientists over the last 150 years. I simply want to reassure you that history can be told in various ways and by different aspects of it.
Can you name 4?
Yes, I can.
And let's
And
do that.
But Mr. Van Loan,
Could I hear you name 4?
The idea.
Well, the point that I'm making.
What is this? Are we in?
The point that I'm making is,
Order, please, order.
I presented facts that show that Canadians don't know their history.
Yes, but Mr.
And I
Van Loan,
think
Mr.
I'm
Van Loan,
demonstrating that.
I do not believe that whether the minister can name you 4 fathers of Confederation has anything to do with estimates at the moment. You asked her about history, she explained it. So you have a minute.
It goes to the importance of Confederation as a theme for the 150th anniversary of Confederation. Canadians should know who the key figures are. You've got Sir John A. Macdonald, Etienne Pascal Taché, you've got George Brown, you've got George Etienne Cartier, you've got Oliver Mowat, who was, and they're all up there, right there in front of you. It wasn't that hard. Could you tell me the 3 Confederation conference locations?
But
Mr. Van Loan, I think
you know,
this has nothing to do with estimates.
Mr. Van
I
Loan.
would like you to stick to the estimates question, please.
I think I've made my point that we need a greater focus on history. Canadians need to know more about their history, including all of us around this table, because I'll bet you that I'm not the only one, you're not the only one who, if I ask that question, would find it a challenge.
Mr. Van
And
Loon,
that's
that's
not
it. Your
unusual.
time's up.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. Now we go to Mr. Nantel from the New Democratic Party.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Merci, Madame.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Joly, for being here. And thank you to Mr. Flack and Mr. Francis. We had a meeting recently. Let's go on to the future now, because culture is told in the past, but can be conjugated in the future as well. And so I would like to join with the arts and culture fields, and I am very pleased with your enthusiasm. However, there are going to be some rough spots ahead, and despite the great investments by the federal government, we know that it can be very partisan and very conservative. At least the criteria of selection, 9 out of 12 or more are chosen in this way. I'm thinking of the people who have been appointed, who were there for a long time. Robert Jeffrey, who was treasurer of the Conservative Party in Nova Scotia, and he has on the board of directors for another 4 years. But there are some people who are going to change it. Delacroix, whose contracts are ending in December and June 2017. You had spoken about a process of independent appointment, and when is that going to happen? That's a good question. In fact, we are working together to make sure that we are going to be able to introduce this nominating process in the coming weeks. It is a priority for us. It is part of my letter of mandate to develop this new appointment process, nomination process, in order to restore Canadians' confidence in the appointment process. And so I want to reassure you on that. We're going to be watching that with a great deal of impatience. The other generalists have reacted to this because they also, as newspapers and radios, are at a loss because of advertising money to the web. And I remind you that 80% of all advertising income is going to research engines, so no tax involved, no advertising contracts. All this money is going to the States. You're talking about digital, and digital, as you mentioned, is used for new technologies and platforms which are not regulated. They are difficult to use and to find money from. What is your personal opinion about the undertakings made by your predecessor here, as he sat here, Mr. Dion, a member of this committee, who deplored and who was asking for a review of how the Copyright Act was going to be reviewed? And also, during the campaign, you mentioned that you were going to be undertaking preliminary consultations about reviewing the Copyright Act. We all know that the Copyright Act is going to be coming back we have, as a parliament, in fact, we have to be reviewing the Copyright Act. With preliminary consultations, here's what's going to happen. We're going to be working with the committee, of course, in order to make sure that the Act will be reviewed. In addition to that, we will be first looking at public consultations about digital issues and how we can support Canadian content in this digital era. Clearly, the issues of copyright are going to be raised by various stakeholders, and we are going to have information already about what's at stake, about the issues, the problems, and also the solutions. So in that context, we will be looking to be well prepared once we undertake this revision, which should happen in 2017. However, the Copyright Commission smiled when we talked about Tariff 8 for streaming. I want to talk to you about it because I wanted to remind you how urgent it is for those of us in the music field in Canada, an administrative tribunal which is going to facilitate the agreement with those who have a title and broadcasters. You have certainly read, I saw the briefcase you were carrying when you came in, the report that had been written, which talked about the high number of jobs lost after this conference, Skinny Basic at CRTC. Do you have any thoughts? Is your team thinking of things to resolve this whole mess? Many producers are going to find themselves in a great deal of difficulty. Evidently, in the whole context of our consultations with the public about digital, we need to look at how we are going to build this new model. The new model, which is going to be able to support Canadian content in the digital world. Also, how are we going to be able to facilitate this transition? How are we going to be able to understand those measures which can attenuate the thornier impacts brought about by digital? But at the same time, when you look at the figures, you look at the revenues coming from the music world are on the rise. And in fact, we see that these revenues are on the upswing, and we see that, may I challenge this, you know, in the music field, it's on the floor right now because of the streaming services. Even Pharrell Williams, who had nothing to do with Canada, got less money from streaming Happy. But the whole issue is that we need to look at this because revenues are on the upswing, and then after that, we need to decide how these revenues are going to be redistributed. And this is why we need to look at the impacts, especially for our musicians, our artists, our authors, and our composers. I appreciate your intentions, and I'm here to remind you of it on a constant basis. We saw this one, that Xavier Dolan, and certainly you reacted. It's great to see him in Cannes again this year. And on Facebook, I posted that it was great to see, and we were proud to see, that a child who had grown up in a world where we protected our cultural field felt that he could speak, that his voice would be heard. What do you think we can do to make sure that our children today who are looking at their parents' iPads will have content which will interest and...
Sorry, Minister. I'm sorry, Mr. Mantel. And now we go to Mr. Vandal from the Liberals for 7 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Minister, we are all in my part of the country, St. Boniface, St. Vital, which was the home of the previous heritage minister, actually. We are all incredibly positive and looking forward to the celebrations of Canada 150. We all support the change in general direction of key areas that you have embarked on. But I'm wondering if you can give us some examples of the projects that we'll be seeing as this process unfolds. Puis, au regard, on est tous fiers de notre patrimoine.
We are all proud of our heritage, Francophone heritage throughout the country, and for Saint Boniface, the Franco-Métis heritage. And perhaps you, Madam Minister, and your deputies can explain how these celebrations and projects for the 150th anniversary will reflect the reality of the linguistic duality of our country, and perhaps Métis and Aboriginals were very important for Saint Vital. Good question. Clearly, I'll first deal with the question of reconciliation with Aboriginal peoples. We must celebrate the next 150 years in a more positive way than we have celebrated the last 150 years. They have lived, especially with regard to the relationships we've had with our Aboriginal peoples and the Métis Nation. For this reason, and given the fact that there were many projects that were not supported by the previous government, and unfortunately that part of history had been set aside, we decided to begin again our discussions with various organizations who support Aboriginal peoples, who do cultural mediation, in order to present projects that are going to be relevant throughout the country. I had an opportunity to speak with different mayors throughout the country, and the mayor of Vancouver, in fact, and Calgary, who are very interested in supporting the various projects, especially with regard to reconciliation with Aboriginal peoples. In addition to that, with regard to linguistic duality, clearly this is a priority. We want to make sure that we can celebrate linguistic duality throughout the country. In fact, in our major pan-Canadian projects, there are paragraphs which require project managers, in fact, they are our clients, to provide services in both languages. In addition to that, we have supported a number of projects which celebrate linguistic duality to talk about history in a positive voice and to show the important impact that linguistic communities in minority situations have had.
Madam Minister, in my riding, as I said, which was the previous home to the Heritage and Culture Minister, groups such as le Centre culturel, le Sac Molière, le Musée de Saint-Boniface, je peux continuer, la Société historique de Saint-Boniface.
Continue, the Historical Society of Saint Boniface.
We're getting pretty demoralized about the, I guess, the lack of forward-looking policy that was evident from the previous political leadership. Can you tell me how the almost $2 billion in new money in arts and culture, which have recently been announced, will support those local organizations, des organisations que je viens juste de nommer,
organizations I've just mentioned, Francophone, Saint Boniface, Saint Vital.
How those local organizations are going to benefit from this new funding?
Of course, the organizations will benefit from it different ways, especially through the Canada Council, that will be able to support more organizations in Saint Boniface and in Manitoba in general. And that will ramp up over 5 years, and it's $40 million this year only. And that's why there was a great reaction on the part of different organizations throughout the country, including different theaters throughout, and some in the Winnipeg region that were really happy in French and in English. Also, there's going to be support, of course, to CBC Radio-Canada will help to make sure we have more local content, more information regarding what's happening in the arts and culture world also, in order for people in the region of Saint Boniface and Winnipeg to really know what's going on in their backyard and in their city. Donc ça, certainement, ça va aider beaucoup la vitalité culturelle.
It's going to help cultural vitality, and it remains the fact that we are going to be able to better support the various linguistic communities in minority situations. I think the $1.9 billion, generally speaking, is going to be is such an important fund injection that is going to help float the whole ecosystem in all countries, in all the ridings of the country. One comment, if I may. Radio-Canada and newspapers in minority situations have been cut back over the last 10 years. And on behalf of my community, I thank you for your leadership and your undertakings in Canadian heritage. Thank you very much.
The second round, which is a 5-minute round, and we begin with Mr. Waugh from the Conservatives.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you for the other morning, and thanks to your staff for the debriefing, Mr. Flack, Mr. Francis. I'm going to pick up on Mr. O'Regan on the CBC. As we all know, they have a budget over $1 billion, and we have sat for weeks here talking about the demise of local media in this country. And we've been searching for solutions in the current state of media in this country, and will continue to search for solutions. But to me, the $675 million that you've handed over to the CBC is really a 61% increase in their budget over the 5 years, in my numbers. So I understand you just said that the shift of resources, you're asking them to go to the digital, and I know when you're growing the middle class here, it states that you will work with the CBC to develop a 5-year accountability plan. So they did receive, or they're going to receive, $675 million. Normally in the business, you do have a plan and then you give the money. It seems to me you've given them the money, but I don't see the plan. So have you started the plan with the CBC? Because the money obviously is going to be rolled out here.
Well, as I expressed a bit earlier in this conversation, we have expressed wishes to the CBC that this $675 million goes to the 3 priorities I've previously mentioned. And we will be working with the CBC while respecting its independence. We all know is very important to our democracy, to make sure that there is an accountability plan.
There is the accountability, if you don't mind me saying.
And of course, we need to partner with them in terms of developing that accountability plan. But clearly, that money is to help the CBC to shift and become a 21st century public broadcaster, and I would add a public content creator in the digital age.
We can't even in this country right now, not everybody gets digital. We're having those discussions across the river here in Gatineau. We can't even agree on that right now. I think this has caused an unlevel playing field. We've seen witnesses over the week, or over the weeks here, talk about this problem. Now we know what the problem is. This is going to turn out to be an uneven playing field. You have the public broadcaster getting gobs of money, if you don't mind me saying, and you have the private people in the exact opposite. They're short of money. We can see their problems. And yet the CBC continues to cut in Kamloops and other small stations in this country. So I do have some problems. I can see the we're going to end up with one broadcaster in this country, and that doesn't serve anyone well.
If I may, the $150 million is a 15% increase rather than the 65%. So that's for one point. But I would add to that.
Big increase, though.
But I would add also that it was clear in our campaign commitments that we would reinvest that money. And that was because also the population was supportive of the importance of a strong public broadcaster. And on that question, if I may, we agree to disagree. But in general,
See, my issue here is we're going to sit here for 3 or 4 months talking about the industry, and now I've seen this for the public and this for the private.
Again,
You've just
I
said
agree.
it, a 50% increase.
I think we agree to disagree on the sense that I profoundly believe also that the $1.9 billion will help the entire ecosystem.
Yeah,
and
no, I'm not talking about the 1.9. I'm talking about the CBC here.
Will help the private broadcasters to have access to content that will be
You still have to pay for
aired,
content.
on their different broadcasting devices. But also,
But you have to pay for
I
content.
hear you that in general, there's a big question of what's the future of news and what's the future of entertainment in this country. And that's why this is such an important question. And this is such a difficult question that we will need to launch public consultations on this, because if we don't do so, we will leave up only to the market to take care of.
The market will be only the public broadcaster.
And to struggle with it. And that's not what we want to do. We want to act as a responsible government that understand that our vision, our policies, our legislation needs to be up to date with what's happening in our society and all the technological changes that are happening, and that's why we need to be up to date, and that's why we think this will be very transformative, because
you see where I'm coming from,
our entire
Minister?
model was developed, if I may, our entire model was developed in a radio and television era, and that's why it's important to look
Thank you. 5
into
minutes
these
are up.
questions.
I'm sorry, Mr. Waugh and Minister. Now we go to Mr. Breton from the Liberals for 5 minutes, please.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Merci, Madame.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Minister. Thank you for being here today. It's a pleasure to be able to listen to you. And I'm also very pleased to see the $2 billion extra investment in arts and culture. In fact, because the studies over the last couple of years shows that $1 invested in arts and culture it has a 7-time multiplication effect. $2 billion is probably going to generate easily $14 billion worth of effects in Canada, and there will be private in that, which will be pleased with the outcome and will be in agreement with this investment, and that are going to approve it. Madam Minister, as you know, we're undertaking a study on media and local communities. Until now, we have heard from many local organizations, and one of their challenges is to adapt rapidly to digital arrival. And I would like to be able to give us what your priorities are and how you intend to take up these challenges and respond to these requests for the priorities. As I said a moment ago, this is something I'm looking at very closely. And what you're doing in your parliamentary committee, and I know in the past various studies have been undertaken by the committee, which might be relevant today. Generally speaking, I think we will need to have a broad consultation and an open and frank consultation with the various stakeholders who are involved in media and entertainment. I would say that there are a few countries around the world who have truly understood how technological change can be managed by the state and how to adapt existing issues to the new digital reality. But I think there is a superb opportunity in digital to have much more content, much more access to this content, but also an increased role for supporting content, Canadian content, in this case. And so I would say that why the $675 million for CBC Radio-Canada is a key point. We have an opportunity now to have a public broadcaster, a public creator of content who will play a more important role than ever before by offering content which is local or national or personalized according to the needs and expectations of various listeners, information consumers, and the web. And they will continue to be able to provide high-quality radio programming, high-quality TV programming as well. Generally speaking, as I said, I'm very interested to see the results you will provide us with regard to local media. One question, and very quickly. With regard to your approach about official languages, you talked about this earlier. In your letter of mandate, you talk about there's a talk about developing over the course of some years in order to support official language groups in minority situations. Very quickly and succinctly, would you give us your overview and tell us what your plans are for the coming years in order to support these communities? Despite the fact that the existing roadmap is ending in 2018, very quickly in my mandate, I wanted to go out to meet with organizations throughout the country, from Yellowknife to Vancouver, Halifax, Toronto, Calgary, these organizations which are working in the field in order to support minority language communities. The reaction to our approach has been positive, and I wanted to take that pulse before working on the new multi-year plan, which is probably going to be designed over the coming year. I would also add and say to you that I wanted to help organizations in arts and culture and in official languages, and I wanted to do this differently.
Yeah.
We're over 5 minutes.
Et j'aurai l'occasion de répondre à vos questions concernant, je ne sais pas si vous avez vu ce matin.
We'll do so differently. I don't know if you saw the article in the Globe and Mail and in La Presse about how we innovated in order to ensure that people have access to their grants much quicker and with better credibility, and looking at pluriannual plans.
And so according to the rotation that we had agreed on as a committee, we will have room for 2 other questioners, but we will be a 3-minute round and not a 5-minute round. So I go to Mr. Waugh for the Conservatives. For 3 minutes,
Chair.
please.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to re-emphasize that 61% increase on the CBC budget was over the 5 years that you have outlined in your budget. But my question really is, I know now where you're paying for this, because our previous government had what was one of the best plans in this country. It was the Children's Art Tax Credit. And I see you've done away with that. That was $105 million that helped families in Canada, helped families for culture, for history, for dancing, for music. And you've done away with it. And it was $105 million. So I can see now we're going to have everyone on the couch watching our public broadcaster instead of where they should be, in car. So maybe talk about why would you cut that when that was bringing people out of their homes giving us the arts and culture that we need in this country. It was a great plan, that art tax credit. And you've taken that $105 million and given it to the public broadcaster.
If I may, yes. I'm very happy to say that as a government, we launched the most innovative and, how can I say, the most important program to support our families since universal care, and that's the l'allocation canadienne pour enfants.
Child tax benefit.
Plan. And that's just to reassure you, our families, for example, that earn
Yes, I know, Mr. Minister. I'm just going to interrupt you because I only have 3 minutes here.
Will get up to $2,000, which is
Madam
way
Minister,
more
if I
than
can.
the former tax credit, to really support them in their needs, including
We also
making
did
sure
that.
their
We
children
also
have
did that.
access to arts and culture activities. So I just wanted to reassure you.
I know. We also
because
had the
I think
universal
that our
child
families
care
will have the right.
Order, please.
If I can, because I've only got
Everyone is
3
talking
minutes.
over each other, and that's not.
Yeah, we only
the way
have 3
do it.
minutes. We also had the universal child care tax plan, but we also had the art and sports, and both have been taken away. Both of these, great for families, have been taken away. We forced kids off the couch with this, and now you've taken this $105 million and given it to public broadcasting, into digital. You're forcing people to use this instead of getting off the couch. And I want you to realize that families are going to feel this in their home. We're trying to get, as you know, our kids active. And you've taken this art tax credit out for arts and culture, for music, for dance. I brought up 2 kids in my family on that. And I'm not the only one. Millions across the country have used it. And now it's gone.
3 minutes up. Thank you. I'm sorry, Minister, we have to move on. The next one is Ms. Debruson for the Liberals. 3 minutes, please.
Thank you, Minister. I was really happy to see that we included in the Canada 150 themes reconciliation. And we've talked a lot over the past week about the need to really move forward on that. Do you have any plans to specifically support Indigenous artists and their contributions to our national culture?
Yes. Well, as I've said a bit earlier, it will be under also the purview of the Canada Council. The new $550 million will be given to the Canada Council, will help support not only Indigenous artists and their own way of addressing different cultural activities, arts and culture activities, and their own governance, but also they will have access to all the programs that are maybe international exports, maybe cultural, artistic creativity, much more for research. So they will have access to a big pool of programs and of money to really support better Indigenous art and culture. Also, the CBC Radio-Canada, as I understand what their plan will be also to support better information in line and on what's happening in the Indigenous communities throughout the country, and also being able to showcase the great cultures that are present in our different Indigenous communities. And also in general, because in the 150th anniversary, we've highlighted that priority, which was really not the case before, which is sad. Well, we will be able to promote the great arts and culture of the First Nations, the Métis Nation, and also the Inuit part of this country.
1 minute, Mr. Bruce.
In my own community, I know that we hear stories about people having a hard time getting access to funding in time. So, for example, somebody may be applying for Canada Day funding, and then the money arrives in August after the event has occurred. I recently heard about some of your plans regarding delegation of authority, and I thought perhaps if you can quickly discuss that.
Yes. Well, what happened when I was first appointed, I realized I had 8,000 contributions to sign myself or through my political staff, which really didn't make sense. It was creating a backlog back in Ottawa, and because of that, organizations were getting their checks even after the events they had, they were organizing had taken place. So I decided to do a massive delegation.
Minister, we're over 3 minutes, so can you wrap up your sentence?
And by doing that delegation, you can have more information in La Presse and the Globe this morning. Organizations throughout the countries will get their checks months before they used to, and also there will be less political interference. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank the Minister for coming, and I'd like to thank the members for participating by asking her the questions. So we will now suspend for a couple of minutes while we move into the next hour. Thank you. All the members in their seats? Thank you. And now we will begin our second hour. And we have before us to respond to the question on estimates, we have the Minister, Honourable Carla Qualtrough, Minister of Sport and Persons with Disabilities. And so, Minister, you have 10 minutes to present, and then we will go into rounds of questions and answers. Thank you. Begin, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'm pleased to be here today to appear before this committee for the first time. With me today from the Department of Canadian Heritage are the Associate Deputy Minister Patrick Borby and Chief Financial Officer Andrew Francis. So, I'd also like to congratulate all the members on their appointment, and I look forward to working with you all. A little background, I'm a two-time Paralympic swimming medalist, an experienced administrator in Canada's sports system, and a human rights lawyer. My mandate as minister allows me to combine two of my main passions, sport and advocacy and action for Canadians with disabilities. The committee has asked me to speak about the main estimates for 2016-2017, and let me give you some highlights. For the 2016-2017 fiscal year, the overall budget for the sport program is just over $206 million. This includes $12 million in operating expenses and $194 million in grants and contributions. In total, this year's budget represents a decrease of $37.6 million from the last year. This is a result of the completion of funding for the Toronto Pan Am and Para-Pan Am Games, and this is very common in the cycle of sport funding when we host an event in Canada. As stated in my mandate letter in relation to sport and recreation in our country, I am tasked with working with the Minister of Infrastructure and Communities to support the construction of recreational infrastructure that allows more children access to sport and recreation, working with the Minister of Health and the Public Health Agency of Canada to support a national strategy to raise awareness for parents, coaches, and athletes about concussion treatment, working with the Minister of Canadian Heritage to champion the inclusion of sport and recreation in government-wide efforts to promote the celebration of Canada 150, with a particular emphasis on the achievements of athletes and people with disabilities, lead the preparation for the Olympic and Paralympic Summer Games in Rio de Janeiro and other major sport events, and create greater links between our elite athletes and young Canadians to promote health and achievement amongst young people. Now, as you can see, I have a very full agenda, and I look forward to working with my parliamentary colleagues, my provincial and territorial counterparts, our departmental officials, and all the stakeholders across Canada's sport system to meet the needs and expectations of all Canadians in the area of sport and recreation. As the single largest investor in our country's sport system, the Government of Canada, through Sport Canada, supports all levels of sport, from recreation all the way up to our high-performance athletes and teams. We have three funding programs: the Sport Support Program, the Athlete Assistance Program, and the Hosting Program. The Sport Support Program provides approximately $146 million in funding to 58 national sport organizations, 23 multi-sport organizations, and 7 Canadian sports centres and institutes to support programs and services that have a direct impact on athletes and athlete development. Le Canada a mis au point une approche.
Canada has developed a leading-edge approach to targeted excellence with the technical expertise provided by the program Own the Podium. This enables us to focus our resources on programs that give athletes the best chance to win medals at Olympic and Paralympic Games. The targeted excellence approach has been used for close to a decade. Canada's results at both the Olympic and Paralympic Games have markedly improved during this period, but the quest for medals requires constant reevaluation. That is why I think it is timely to examine the impact and effects of the targeted excellence approach across the Canadian sports system. The review I propose will encompass all aspects of the approach, including, but not restricted to, the contributions of Own the Podium.
In addition, we provide funding through our bilateral agreements with provinces and territories to support programs and services aimed at children and young people, as well as underrepresented groups. In particular, I'm committed to making sport more accessible to Indigenous people and as a means of personal and community development. The Hosting Program, with a budget of approximately $20 million per year, aims to enhance the development of sport excellence and the international profile of sport organizations by helping sport organizations host the Canada Games and approximately 90 international sport events a year in Canada. Permettez-moi de mentionner l'un d'entre.
Let me mention just one of them. I am excited that the Jeux de la Francophonie will be hosted by Moncton Dieppe in 2021. Events like these are expected to leave significant sport, economic, social, and cultural legacies.
Approximately $28 million per year in direct monthly support to about 2,000 of Canada's top high-performance athletes to help relieve some of the financial pressures associated with preparing to participate in international sport, including living, training, and education expenses. Sport is also important to Canadian communities. In Budget 2016, we introduced a number of initiatives for social infrastructure, including support for sport and recreation infrastructure. $150 million will be made available through regional development agencies to upgrade sport and recreation facilities across the country. I'm also pleased to say that sport and recreation projects are now an eligible category under infrastructure programs like the Small Communities Fund. We make these investments because we know that sport is important to Canadians as individuals for its physical and mental health benefits. 72% of Canadians believe that sport is a key contributor to their quality of life. More than 5 million Canadians belong to national sport organizations. Data shows that 84% of children between the ages of 5 and 10 participate in sport, both boys and girls. Unfortunately, participation declines with age, especially amongst girls. By their late teens, only 58% of girls are still involved in sports, compared to 62% of boys. We need to do a better job in the sport system to keep young people involved in sport. Sport facilities are natural gathering places. Hosting sport events like the Canada Games builds civic pride and community spirit. Le sport est aussi un bon moyen d'intégrer les nouveaux.
Sport is also a good way to integrate newcomers, people with disabilities, and others who might otherwise feel they are on the sidelines. Sport is part of our cultural identity. Sport builds pride in our nation. Our athletes are wonderful role models, especially for our young people, of the dedication and passion that is required to reach for and attain a goal. At the same time, our athletes are tremendous examples of the benefits of sport and of living a healthy, active life. Many of our common memories of shining Canadian moments are linked to sport. Donovan Bailey's double gold medals in Atlanta and Sidney Crosby's golden goal in Vancouver are just a couple of examples.
Cheer on our athletes as they look to write a new chapter in our country's rich sporting history. Est-ce que notre équipe paralympique de natation?
Can our Paralympic swim team dominate the pool the way we did in London? How many Canadian kids are going to go out in their backyard or local park to emulate the new Olympic hero who inspired them at the Rio 2016 Olympic or Paralympic Games? Beyond the Games, it is important that Canada have a strategic approach to engagement in international sport. We will work with international sport bodies to make all of our sport open, fair, and welcoming, and provide all athletes with a level playing field. Ladies and gentlemen, I am proud to be part of a government that places so much importance on sport and active communities.
My great passions as an athlete and now as a minister responsible for sport in Canada. I can assure you that we will continue to invest in today's high-performance athletes as well as the next generation. Not only that, we will work across departments to increase access to sport and recreation and make sport programs safer, more accessible, and more inclusive. I thank you for the opportunity to be here today and hope that I will have your support to make this vision a reality. I'd now be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much, Minister. And now we're going to begin the question session. And we begin with Mr. Sarai for the Liberals for 7 minutes, Mr. Sarai. That includes, Minister, that includes the questions and answers. Thank you.
Minister, thank you for coming, and it's an honor to have a minister who herself has won medals and participated in international competitions such as the Paralympics. In 2005, prior to the Vancouver Games, Canada set up the Own the Podium program to ensure that our athletes perform the best and the best of them is brought out. I had the opportunity of going to many of the 2010 Olympic venues and games and noticed that it was a success. How about now, 11 years later, do you, Minister, have confidence that this program is still the best program to support our athletes?
Thank you. I think, like any good coach would tell you, we need to be constantly upping our game. We need to be constantly reviewing our approach to any given situation, especially sport. So I think it's not only prudent, but necessary and incumbent on us, because of the investment of public dollars, to review our approach, and that's exactly what we're doing. So On the Podium has had very good success. Our athletes are doing better than they were. We are now taking a more general approach and reviewing what is called this targeted excellence approach to high-performance sport, a big component of which is On the Podium, just to make sure that, internationally it's still a best practice, to make sure that we're getting the best results for our public investment. And again, just to make sure that we're on the right track with this program. We might be. We might end up going down the exact same path we're heading down now, but it's prudent to make sure that it's still the right way to go.
Has your department identified areas in this program that can be improved currently?
I think it's a little premature to say that. I think what we're hearing from sport organizations is that they too want to make sure this is still the best way to go. I wouldn't say there's concerns. I just think that, like I said at the very beginning, athletes, sport organizations, sport administrators, coaches are by nature competitive, and they want to make sure we still have that cutting edge that we had 10 years ago by, using this program as the vehicle to achieve medal results at international competitions.
Thank you, Minister. There are 2 days that mark the 99th anniversary of the Battle of Vimy Ridge, an important aspect of the Canadian identity. It marks the important sacrifice that made by our military and the many soldiers who bravely fought for our freedom. In 2017, the Invictus Games are scheduled to be held in Toronto for the 150th anniversary of Canada. These games are intended to honor the sacrifices of soldiers and soldiers everywhere. Can the minister tell us more details about the Invictus Games to be held in 2017 and the events that surround it, including the 2 major conferences?
Absolutely. So, as was said, the Invictus Games is really a celebration of the efforts and the sacrifice that our vets have made for our country. And what it allows us to do is that bridge between active participation in the military and active participation in life. A tiny little history lesson. The Paralympic movement itself was actually born out of an initiative in the UK to help wounded war vets rehabilitate. And they recognized very quickly in the early 20th century that a really impactful way of doing this was by providing sport and recreation opportunities to veterans, and that snowballed into what is now today a very well-respected and high-performance sport movement around the world. The Invictus Games allows us to bring together athletes from a number of countries, mainly in the Commonwealth, but around the world, and really celebrate the accomplishments of these military men and women and do it through sport. So what's going to happen, and if you'll recall, money was allocated to Invictus Games through Budget 2016, but what they're going to build around in Toronto in 2017 is both a celebration of sport, but also a celebration of the contributions of military women and men who serve across the world. The other thing is they're going to be hosting two conferences around this event. So the first one is the Canadian Institute for Military and Veteran Health Research Conference, which is going to bring together more than 1,000 academics and researchers from around the world. And this conference is specifically focused on the mental and physical health of our military. And veterans and their families, sorry. And the second is the True Patriot Love Foundation's International Symposium that brings together foundations, veterans advocate groups, and primary caregivers to really discuss the state of military families today. So, it's something that I think we should be very proud as Canada as hosting next year. And I myself think it's a wonderful symmetry between hosting this event in 2017 and it being our 150th birthday.
Minister, as we approach the Games in Rio, we all know our athletes are a pride of our country. It takes a lot of sacrifice and effort to be a part of it. We have a duty to support these athletes who are representing us. In my riding of Surrey Centre, and as well as yours of Delta, which abuts mine, there are many athletes that are aspiring or on the Olympics, but they're in sports that maybe are not considered the top tier sports, perhaps like field hockey or others, and get less funding. Can you tell us more about the Athletes Assistance Program?
Sure. And very quickly, Madam Chair, I'm mindful of the time, but the AAP, or the Athlete Assistance Program, is a monthly amount of money that goes directly to over 1,900, around 2,000 of our athletes, that gives them money towards travel, living, and other related personal expenses. The AAP also has a component of education expenses, so our athletes get the opportunity to, either during or after their athletic career, pursue academic studies at the cost of the government, which is fantastic. The AAP also has special programs that offer additional support, whether it's through caregiving, whether it be through childcare, or other special needs that might arrive for our athletes. It's a very important component of our system, and our athletes are very, very grateful for this assistance.
Thank you very much. You have 30 seconds.
I'll pass over my time to.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sarai. And now we go to Mr. Kitchen for the Conservatives.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Minister, for coming. I just want to start off with just a quick, hopefully, an explanation, or just if you can help me through this. In the Canadian Heritage 2016-17 report on plans and priorities, and in the main estimates, the main estimates suggested there was going to be $206 million. In the briefing we had just the other day, we were presented with a briefing which suggested that sport really only amounts for $194.2 million. Can you explain that discrepancy?
Turn it over to my
Thank you.
Thank you. The $194 million that you refer to are the grants and contributions programs, and you have to add another approximately $12 million in operating costs associated with Sport Canada, and that gives you your total budget in the main estimates for the coming year.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I forgot about the operating costs. Okay, great. Thank you. So on that note, when we're talking about the projects that are in there, and in that we have the hosting program of $20 million, the sport support, which is basically $146 million, and then the individual athlete programs of $30 million. One of the things that when you talked about on the podium, some of the reviews have identified that some of the unintended consequences of that were limited development of athletes. And so what we found out, there was created the Next Generation Project. And in Budget 2015, we proposed a $20 million over 4 years, which would be matched by the public, and starting in this fiscal year of 2016-17. And I'm just wondering, in my discussions at the briefing the other day, I'd asked a question on that aspect as to where the money is, where is it, what are we looking at, are we going with this? I'm wondering if you can comment on that.
I'd be happy to, thank you. What we know, as you said, calling it a vacuum, is it's not enough to invest in athletes who are within 4 years of their peak performance. We need to look beyond those athletes. We need to look at athletes who might be 5 to 8 years away, and figure out the best way to support them in their pursuits. The Next Generation funding that was announced was exactly targeted to do just that. What we're looking now, and we're talking with stakeholders, that money is still there. That money is still, I don't know the word, I apologize. Yeah, it's in the fiscal framework, I apologize. I didn't know the government speak for it. But it's also going to be matched by private dollars. Right now we're talking with stakeholders as how to best deliver that money. So what's the best organization to house the Next Gen funding? Is it on the podium? On the podium isn't historically in the business of looking at athletes 5 years out. Is it the Olympic Committee, the Paralympic Committee? Should it be a grant and contribution program that Sport Canada manages? So we're working with stakeholders now. That money is definitely there. I think we're almost near the end of those consultations, and I'm personally extremely excited to provide a whole of athlete program suite for our athletes, whether it be athletes who are 5 to 8 years out, athletes who are 0 to 4 years out, and then of course we need to think of our transitioning athletes, and that's where again the AAP provides some of that education support. So I'm really excited about that money, and I'm really excited to be able in the near future, I would say, to come back and announce how we're going to distribute those funds.
Okay, thank you. One of the other, as you mentioned in your preamble and what we saw in the letter from the Prime Minister, in your mandate letter, basically on the issue of concussions. And you're basically to collaborate and develop a strategy and raise awareness to parents and athletes and to coaches on the issues of concussion, and not only that, the prevention and treatment of this initiative. In the Canadian Heritage Report, this Canadian Heritage Report and plans, it indicates that in 2016, 2017, it's already started. Can you expand on that and tell us where it started and what's been going on?
Sure, thank you. And again, a really important question, and I appreciate you asking it. There's some really good work being done at the national level in concussions, whether it be the Concussion Collaborative, whether it be the FPT, the Federal Provincial Territorial Work Group on Sport and Rec is looking at this issue. And what the Minister in Health and I are tasked with is providing federal leadership around developing a national or federal strategy for concussions. What we are planning to do, so in June of this year, we have an FPT Ministers meeting for sport. And one of the things on the table is discussion of developing, approving a framework for addressing building a national concussion strategy in collaboration with the provinces or territories. What we don't want to do is duplicate efforts or reinvent the wheel, because as I said, there's some really brilliant minds already turning their thoughts to these issues regularly, certainly more than I would say I have in my life. And I'm humbled every time a concussion expert walks into my office and shares with me the thinking and the impact of this issue on our kids. And I have young kids, and I as they head into more aggressive sport opportunities, I would say I'm extremely mindful of the impact, for lack of a better word, of concussion on our children. I'm really excited that we're moving forward with this. There's some key milestones, I would say, in the next year in terms of delivering this for our country. I think we've got some strong advocates at the national level, including the Governor General, who this is of particular interest to him, and so he's lending his support to any of our efforts around concussions. And what I can assure you is that we're on top of this, that it is a top priority for myself and the Minister of Health, and we look forward to sharing our plans and strategy as we move forward on this file.
Thank you.
Less than 1 minute, Mr.
Well, I'll just follow up on that then. If you can maybe expand a little bit on that, one of the concerns that we have, and I agree with you, there's a lot of great research on it, and as myself, having been a sports practitioner and dealt with athletes with multiple concussions, one of the biggest problems that we find is, although we have the research and the information, knowledge transfer, knowledge translation is a big issue. And not only knowledge translation, but also knowledge retention. Because oftentimes we present that information to the personnel in a rural area or whatever it may be. They do the best practices for a week, and then the next week they go back to what they're used to. Are you looking at that as being part of the process and ensuring that that's in the project?
I would say absolutely. I think, you're bang on when you say that, we've got some good research, but we need to make sure that practitioners are living it and that it becomes the way we do business. This is also a huge culture shift that's going to have to happen in the sport community. Certainly in some sports in particular, there's a culture of suck it up and get back on the field. And we need, what I've told parent groups and what I've told others is, if I as an athlete sprain my ankle, you don't throw me back in the pool. If I as an athlete sprain my brain, you're more than willing to put me back on the ice, and I don't understand that. And so I think we need to, a big component of us for this, particularly in sport, is going to be education and a culture shift around respecting that this is in fact a brain injury, and we need to treat it as such.
Thank you. The 7 minutes are up. Thank you, Minister. Mr. Nantel for the NDP, 7 minutes, please.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Merci beaucoup, Madame.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Qualtrough, and welcome to the people who are with you today. I would like to talk. I was talking with a volunteer at. I'm sorry, I was a volunteer in Longueuil during the games at that time. It was a fantastic experience, and what often brought me to tears was the feeling of accomplishment felt by young athletes, and also the team experience to work as a member of a team and to be part of a big movement, an opportunity to work together. And so it came to my hearing that the Jeux du Québec 2016, which is going to be held in Montreal, the organizing committee is still waiting for news from you, from your department, to get its funding, which happens every year. I'm not in any doubt that it's going to arrive, but they're starting to feel a little concerned, especially because in 1976 there were the Olympic Games in Montreal. So there was a great anniversary happening where the Olympic Stadium is being spoken about for good reasons. The director is a very dynamic person, and he's making this monument better known. And so I wanted to know if you have any developments to share with the organizing team of the Jeux du Québec. I can't read it because it's too small, so my DM is going to answer. Listen, the minister recently met with the stakeholders from Quebec. They had a discussion about their proposal. The proposal is under study, and we can assure you that it is being studied in a very serious way, and we will be giving an answer in the briefest delay. We are talking about some links between the 150th anniversary celebrations as well, so there's an opportunity for us to help as well. All this is under study. Thank you for not having avoided the question and answering it quite frankly, but I'm a little surprised at myself because there's no 150th anniversary in 2016. It's this year. 2017 is the next one, and so great. It's going to be happening without any delay. I often notice how there are all kinds of pieces missing in the government because these people sold the parts off, to help. Anyway, that was a joke I was making, by the by. Anyone who is in the least bit interested in sports accomplishments was terrorized to see Jean-Luc Brassard in the news lately. You are an athlete. You know how determined one must be in training and in accomplishing what you have succeeded in doing. Jean-Luc Brassard wanted to hold the fort with a great deal of courage despite accusations of sexual harassment and the torment about the whole issue of a Star Trek level. Can you give us an update what's happening at the Canadian Olympic Committee? And there's private partnerships, but a great deal of public funding there and a great deal of public pride. I agree with you because it's a very serious matter. The Government of Canada has a zero-tolerance policy for harassment. We must be 100% sure that our workforces are harassment-free. Mr. Brassard made his decision, and first of all, I want to congratulate him and thank him for his efforts. He is a hero and an athlete whom I admire a great deal. He succeeded very well for the COC. I am encouraged because he also, like I, have a great deal of confidence in the new president of the COC. It's a new management style, I would say. Tricia Smith is also an athlete. She was a rower, I believe. She was a rower at 4 Olympic Games, a gold medal. She's a lawyer and an adjudicator for the International Sport Tribunal. She has the highest integrity. I have absolute confidence in her. When Jean-Luc spoke about it 2 or 3 days ago, he said that he's going to go back to the COC one day in another capacity because Tricia is going to clean up the COC. I also share this opinion. And Kurt Harnett, who is the new chef de mission, also stated publicly that if he did not have confidence in the leadership of the COC, he would not have accepted that responsibility. And so I speak regularly with Tricia. She's very different. She's more behind the scenes. She launched an inquiry. A process is underway, and she does not want to interrupt. She does not want to affect the decision in any way, nor the process. I know when an athlete directs an organization like the COC, the approach is somewhat different. She knows the athletes, she knows their needs, she knows what needs to be done in order to own the podium. I have a great deal of confidence in her leadership. Well, in any case, I invite you for public confidence and for athletes. I invite you, in order to ensure public confidence, to make this known, to make your new president known. We know people like Mr. Brassard, the new chef de mission, looks great, but your interest, the way you speak about it, and your French, which is lovely, in fact, and I want to tell you that it's important for you to speak on this because, you know, these accusations of sexual harassment are, we're talking about a kind of a Swiss bank club happening, so thank you. I think there needs to be a change in the organization's culture for the upcoming games. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we go for 7 minutes to Ms. Debrusin for the Liberals.
Thank you, Minister. As the mother of two girls who are involved in sports, one competitively, I see the impact that sports has on their self-confidence and on their development. And in my own community, I've coached girls ball hockey for many years. And I saw that we had a ball hockey league that was co-ed. Girls weren't participating for very long. They were dropping out. And then we expanded into a girls division. And now it is the interest in it, there are waiting lists, it's a growing league. So my question to you is, how are you and the department going to focus on encouraging women and girls in sport to encourage their numbers and to encourage their participation?
Thank you. It's a really important question, something I'm quite passionate about because as a mother of a 5-year-old girl and a 16-year-old girl, I've lived the experience of my daughter getting, losing her love for sport. And, that's when we lose girls, is around 14. And we need to build systems and we need to create experiences for them where we won't lose them. One of the things Sport Canada does is fund CAUSE, which is the Canadian Association for the Advancement of Women in Sport, to the tune of approximately $250,000. And CAUSE works with national sport organizations and multi-sport organizations to basically increase awareness about how we can be more inclusive of women and girls in our sport experiences. It's very interesting to me because of the 1,900 and some odd, 2,000 athletes we card through our athlete assistance program, 50% of them are women. So at that level, we have a 50% representation in sport. So what's happening? Like how is it that we lose them, but then at the high performance level, we seem to have them? So I'm interested in figuring that out, and it's something that we're turning our minds to as we look at being more inclusive. The other piece I'd like to talk about is your comment about the kind of sport experience our girls are having. And I think that we need to be creative and inclusive. We need to provide integrated opportunities where girls get to play with boys, but we also need to respect the fact that some girls like to play with girls. And that the experience is different when you play in a girls' league than when you play in a co-ed league. And I think that the more the variety and the range of sport experiences we can provide our girls, the better. And I think we just need to be mindful not to lose them. So what kind of good sport experience will keep them in the game longer? Because we know that, as I said in my opening remarks, by a certain age, they're no longer experiencing sport at the same levels as boys.
Thank you. And on that notion of, because you mentioned, inclusive sports and trying to develop that, I think it's wonderful that our Minister of Sport is a Paralympian yourself, and that I know, was it in 1992 and 1998 that you received
I was very
medals?
young, yes.
Yes. And just recently, just because we are talking about women and girls, you received International Paralympic Committee's International Women's Day recognition just this year. So that.
Thank you.
But working towards it, you mentioned that we did very well in London in Paralympics. What are your thoughts about the Paralympic movement now worldwide and how the government of Canada can support Paralympians?
How much time do I have? I have a lot of thoughts. I'm being cheeky. I apologize.
Mr. Bruson and you together have another 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. As you know, I did swim in the Paralympic Games, and I can tell you all very seriously that it changed my life. As a person with a disability who was actually quite good at sport in my youth, and then at some point the fact that I can't see very well, I'm legally blind, caught up to me, and I wasn't performing as well as I had when I was younger. And that's when I found Paralympic sport, and I found a system of sport that basically leveled the playing field for me. So I was competing against other athletes who couldn't see, instead of competing against athletes who could see and had started to beat me. And as you can appreciate in swimming, they were beating me by hundredths of a second because they could see the wall and I couldn't. I fell in love with the Paralympic movement and continued volunteering after my retirement and ended up being president of the Canadian Paralympic Committee. But what I can tell you is so much has changed since I competed in the Paralympic Games. When I swam for Canada, my parents actually had to pay for my uniform. Uniforms weren't funded for the Paralympic team. And that wasn't that long ago in the history of this movement. And now the Government of Canada has an equality policy where Olympic and Paralympic athletes are funded equally and equitably. And I would make that distinction because sometimes it costs a little more to support someone with a disability. And the Government of Canada has in place programs to make sure that that additional support and care, both on the personal side but also on the sport technical side, are provided. So for example, an athlete who's a runner, who's totally blind, will have to run with a guide, and that guide also receives support so that they can train regularly with this athlete. They can bike regularly in cycling. It's really fantastic. We've come a long way. Do we have further to go? Absolutely. Is the television coverage the same? Not quite yet, but it's a lot better than it was. And when you think of movements and social movements, and I would say as much as it is a sport movement, the Paralympics is also an important social movement internationally. I'm very proud that Canada, has the policies and programs we have in terms of the equitable treatment of our athletes. You will never hear me, but you'll never hear any of Sport Canada's officials say Olympic without saying Paralympic. We fund equitably our national teams in all para sports. We have encouraged the national sport organizations and multi-sport organizations to have Paralympic representation and para-sport representation within their leadership and government models. So, like I say, we've come a long way, but there's a lot. Sorry, thank you for that, because I will talk about this forever. But we do have a lot further to go, is my point. But I'm certainly proud of how far we've come.
Thank you very much. You've got about 40 seconds.
You cut yourself short. Did you have anything else you wanted to add? Otherwise, I can ask you another question. I just wanted to make sure.
No, I'm good. I just would, do a big plug for please support your Paralympic athletes in your ridings this summer heading into Rio, because they are high-performance, excellent athletes.
Thank you. I think nothing more to ask Mr. Bruson. Thank you. And now we go into the second round, which is a 5-minute round, and we begin with Mr. Waugh from the Conservatives.
Well, Sports Minister, I want to congratulate you what you've done in this country throughout your career. As a father of a swimmer that made the Canada Summer Games team way back when, I just want to...
What games? What summer games?
Prince Edward Island. He was a swimmer, long distance.
That's
so
awesome.
I just want to congratulate you.
Thank you.
I know the hours that you have dedicated to the sport of swimming. We get up in the morning at 5 and are still at the pool at 7 p.m. at night. So I just want to congratulate you.
Thank you very much.
So saying that, the sports tax credit is gone, and you know how much dearly Canadians coast to coast to coast loved it. It gave people in this country a chance to try different sports. Not only try hockey 12 months of the year or whatever, and you know that. I'm really disappointed. As you know, the arts tax credit, which you were here when I talked about it an hour ago, and now we have the sports credit gone. And I think it's so important in this country to get people off, the kids of our country, off the couch and participating. To have the chance 8 years out to say, I didn't know I loved this sport so much. And I may have a chance to be, Canada Summer Games, Pan Am, whatever. And now we've taken that away from the dreams of the kids in this country, I believe. That was an important tax credit. Your thoughts on that?
Thank you. And I'm sorry, I didn't know if was it your son or your daughter that swam
My
in Canada
son,
Games?
my son,
That's,
yeah.
Honestly, Canada Games is a phenomenal experience. So,
Yeah.
you know, and thank you. As a parent of a swimmer, I can imagine the hours you put in as well. So,
Well, hours and money.
hours and money, yes, that is swimming. You know, the Children's Fitness Tax Credit, the decision to let go of that particular tax credit was the thinking behind it, as you've probably been told, is that our new Canada Child Benefit puts money directly in the pockets of families. One thing we've learned from the fitness tax credit over the years is it actually didn't result in increased participation in sport, because you still had to be able to afford sport in order to later on during the year claim that credit. It didn't give money into the pockets of somebody who, if I can't afford the $200 for swimming, it won't matter that a year later or 8 months later I can get a credit for it, or I can get part of that money back. So the thinking in having the Child Canada benefit that puts money directly in their hands up front, what I'm hoping is that'll give parents more flexibility financially to actually get their kids out into the pools, onto the fields. It's kind of a philosophical discussion, right, as to how we invest. We've decided to go with the Child Canada benefit that puts the money up front in pockets instead of requiring parents to claim the fitness tax credit at the end.
I'm just hoping instead of putting food on the table, like most of them may use that money for, we can get them back on the diamonds or the soccer pitches. One of the things I really have a problem with the IOC is when you award, well, we'll take Rio for an example, the Summer Games coming up. All of a sudden we have a new sport of golf. And we have 3 professionals that I think that will represent us fine. But unfortunately now you're talking funding in the sport. We didn't know golf was coming until Rio decided with the IOC to make it an Olympic sport. So how do you fund sports, these marginal sports? And I'm not saying golf's marginal, but you know.
No, I know what you're saying. It's
you know, you're telling me 8 years out. I have no idea what 4 8-year Olympic Games out that they're going to slash, in this case, baseball, softball, and go into something else. So, I mean, and then you go to own the podium. How can you go to one of the top businesses in this country and say, would you look after this sport, when 8 years down the road it may not be there?
Yeah, I mean, I actually share your frustration in the Olympic cycle, and it provides a ton of challenge for national sport organizations because, of course, we fund based on Olympic and Paralympic program. And so if you're not, necessarily on that program in any given quadrennial, then your access to to programs and services is quite limited. So I think, what we need to do is encourage the IOC to be to make the decisions earlier on so we can have a longer runway into games. That's an IOC decision, and it's also a host community decision. So the IOC will tell them they have to put on a certain number of sports, and the host organizing committee will get to pick.
Okay, I'm just
Thank you. I'm sorry.
Last
that's
statement, though, the last gold medal
Comment.
winner
You
in
have
golf
15
was a
seconds.
Canadian. And we have Graham Dillette of Saskatchewan. Hopefully there will be in Rio, so we might win gold again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Waugh. And now we go to Mr. Reagan for the Liberals.
And I'll pick up where my colleague was going. And as you know, perhaps more than most, that runway that you spoke about is getting shorter and shorter. And we've got 113 days before the opening ceremonies of the Olympics, 146 days before the opening ceremonies of the Paralympics. How ready are we right now, in your estimation?
That's a good question. I mean, I'm excited for Rio for a couple of reasons. First of all, we're in a bit of a transition year. Many of our athletes retired after London, so we've got some really new and exciting faces that we're going to see for the first time on the international stage. We have so many team sports that have qualified, and perhaps historically we haven't been as lucky to have that many teams. We've got a lot of female teams, women's field hockey, women's wheelchair basketball. I mean, I think our athletes are ready. I mean, our athletes are always going to be as ready as they can be, quite frankly, regardless of the systems that are in place. Our athletes are, excellence is just part of their DNA, and they're going to be as ready as they can be. Our job is to support them as much as we can. I think we're doing that. I think On the Podium is doing that, and the national sport organizations are doing that. I think we're going to have some breakout performances in Rio, both on the Olympic and Paralympic side. I'm not sure what the medal count will be. I think we're in a year of transition, and I wouldn't want to speculate, and that's not my job. That's up to the COC and on the podium to make those predictions, but I'll be there. I think we need to remember that qualifying for the Olympics or Paralympic Games is pretty darn impressive. I mean, this focus on medals, on the one hand, I understand as a competitor and as someone who got fourth a couple of times and just went there and said, so close. But being 12th in the world, being on the Olympic team, wearing that jacket for Canada, that's an impressive accomplishment in and of itself. And we need to celebrate all of our athletes who make these teams and remember that as we sit on our couches and judge that maybe 12th isn't such a big deal. When 12th in the world in any sport, in anything, is pretty darn impressive.
Let me ask you specifically about, when we talk about preparation of athletes and preparation for the Games, are there any security concerns on your radar that you're worried about going into Rio?
I would say not more than any other games. I mean, Rio is not the safest place in the world, but thankfully we have a very strong relationship between the RCMP and through our global affairs and through the COC and CPC. They do tabletop exercises. RCMP accompany the team. When I'm there, I will be surrounded by security. And I mean, as you know, the Olympics, there's an Olympic bubble, as we say it. You move from event to event, from venue to venue. You're within the confines of the Olympic precinct or the Paralympic precinct, and you don't stray too far from that when you're in that experience. And whatever goes on around you in the world, you're kind of in the bubble.
Let me ask you specifically, because it's in the news obviously a lot in the past couple of days, once again, the Zika virus. Is that a threat at all to our athletes?
I wouldn't say it's a threat. I think it's something that we're aware of. We're working with Public Health Agency. We're working with Global Affairs. We're working with the COC and the CPC so that our athletes and the medical teams have the best and most up-to-date information because they have to make choices. I'm not sure how many of our Olympic or Paralympic athletes may or may not be pregnant, but we need them to know what the risks are if they go to Rio and make their own personal choices accordingly. And that's, what is being advised is if you are or might be pregnant, you shouldn't go, and athletes will have to make those choices. I don't think it's a big threat for our teams.
You're in a unique position because of your participation as an Olympian. So I wanted to ask you, when you look at how the role, I guess, the government played in preparing you as an athlete and as an ambassador for our country then, how are we doing now? And it's probably 113 days, 146 days, probably too late to make any significant changes. But as we learn more and more and more what government's proper role should be, how do you see us improving in the future?
Well, I think generally speaking, we could use sport as a means and an end. In government and in life. I think that, we focus a lot on sport as an end, but if we look at the power of sport to address broader social policy objectives, address broader public policy challenges, whether it be childhood obesity or substance abuse or isolation, and I think it is our Olympic and Paralympic athletes who are the role models for potentially marginalized groups. And I think that there may be a way as public health looks at combating obesity, as we look at juvenile justice issues, that we can use these ambassadors and these leaders and these success stories to inspire other kids in particular to be the best they can be and follow whatever dreams they have.
Thank you very much. And we've come to the end of our question and answer period because we need to do some voting. So I want to leave us time to do that on the estimate. So I want to thank the Minister. I want to thank the committee for a really good session. So thank you. And we will allow the Minister and her officials to leave. So we'll take about a minute and then we will have to come back and vote on the estimates. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Order, please. Order.
Pretty easy, one after the other.
And now we will go to the votes. We're going to vote on the main estimates of 2016-2017. Now, shall vote 1 under Canada Council for the Arts carry? Carry. Please, can I get everybody to pay attention? Now, shall vote 1 under Canada Council for the Arts carry? Those in favour? Those opposed? The motion is carried. Shall vote 1 under Canada Broadcasting Corporation carry? Those in favour? Those opposed? Motion is carried. Shall vote 5 under Canadian Broadcasting Corporation carry? Those in favour? Those opposed? The motion carries. Shall vote 10 under Canada Broadcasting Corporation carry? Those in favour? Those opposed? The motion carries. Shall vote 1 under Canada Heritage carry? Those in favour? Those opposed? The motion is carried. Shall vote 5 under Canadian Heritage carry? Those in favour? Those opposed? The vote is carried. Shall vote 1 under Canadian Museum for Human Rights carry? Those in favour? Those opposed? The motion carries. Shall vote 1 under Canadian Museum of History carry? Those in favour? Those opposed? The motion carries. Shall vote 1 under Canadian Museum of Nature carry? Those in favour? Those opposed? The motion carries. Shall vote 1 under Canadian Museum of Immigration at Pier 21 carry? Those in favour? Those opposed? The motion carries. Was that in favour, Mr. Van Loon, from your side? No, sorry. Thank you. Okay. Shall vote 1 under Canadian Radio, Television and Telecommunications communication carry? Those in favour? Those opposed? The motion carries. Shall vote 1 under Library and Archives Canada carry? Those in favour? Those opposed? The motion carries. Shall vote 5 under Library and Archives carry? Those in favour? Those opposed? The motion carries. Shall vote 1 under National Arts Centre Corporation carry? Those in favour? Those opposed? The motion carries. Shall vote 1 under National Battlefields Commission carry? Those in favour? Those opposed? The motion carries. Shall vote 1 under National Capital Commission carry? Those in favour? Those opposed? The motion carries. Shall vote 5 under National Capital Commission carry? Those in favour? Those opposed? The motion carries. Shall vote 1 under National Film Board of Canada carry? Those in favour? Those opposed? The motion carries. Shall vote 5 under National Gallery of Canada carry? Those in favour? Those opposed? The motion carries. Shall vote 1 under National Gallery of Canada carry? Those in favour? Those opposed? The motion carries. Shall vote 1 under National Museum of Science and Technology carry? Those in favour? Those opposed? The motion carries. Shall vote 1 under Telefilm Canada carry? Those in favour? Those opposed? The motion carries. Shall I report the main estimates 2016-2017 to the House? Those in favour? Those opposed? The motion carries. I want to thank you very much. The motion to adjourn. Thank you, Mr. Van Loon.